Aluminum collectibles. Over the years, I have collected just about everything you can imagine that I've dug out of the ground or found inexpensive enough at yard, garage, and estate sales. But one thing I avoided like the plague until recently were aluminum pieces, and I avoided them because I was ignorant as to their background history and age. When I saw an aluminum ashtray or token, or I would think that, oh, this isn't very old. This is pretty new, and aluminum is kind of ugly, I thought then. So I avoided it. If I dug something up that was aluminum, I usually tossed it aside. Boy, was I wrong. I acquired recently a nice collection of aluminum advertising tokens, play money, and other aluminum tokens from my good friend Barry Gill Alberg, who dug all of them in the Saginaw, Michigan area. Many of them have on them advertisements for Saginaw businesses, either the west side or the east side. But it is often said that aluminum has had a relatively brief history, and that's what I thought. And under the name aluminum, it is certainly true. But using aluminum for its properties and compounds, some sources reckon, started around 5300 BC. It is thought that potters in ancient Persia made their strongest cooking vessels from a clay that consisted largely of aluminum silicates. Aluminum compounds are thought to have been used more by the Egyptian and Babylonians around 4,000 years ago as fabric dyes and as cosmetics. Despite these uses in the very far past, the element aluminum itself wasn't discovered or named until the early 1800s, when Sir Humphrey Davy established its existence, but even he was unable to actually make any. Just over 10 years later, a French scientist discovered hard red clay containing over 50% aluminum oxide in southern France. It was named bauxite, aluminum's most common ore, and as aluminum is so combined in nature and never occurs naturally, even up to this time, no pure aluminum has ever been produced. In 1852, a small lump of aluminum metal was finally produced by Hans Christian Ørsted of Denmark, whose work was continued and developed by Frederick Wöhler in Berlin, who managed to isolate aluminum as a powder in 1827 in a process involving potassium and anhydrous aluminum chloride. Wöhler also established the density of aluminum and discovered its key lightness in 1845. 9 years later, another French scientist, Henri Saint-Clair Deville, became involved with aluminum and improved upon Wöhler's method to create the first commercial production process. At this time, aluminum was more expensive than gold and platinum, and it was regarded as the new precious metal. A bar of aluminum was even exhibited at the Paris Exposition in 1855, but over the next 10 years, its face value, its value fell by over 90%, although it was still far too expensive to be adopted by industry as a metal of choice. Gradually, methods were improved upon, and in 1885, a process was developed with an annual output of 15 tons. The real revolution occurred a year later with the remarkable, separate but simultaneous development of an aluminum isolation method on either side of the Atlantic. Paul Louis Toussaint Héroult of France and Charles Martin Hall of the USA both came up with the process of dissolving aluminum oxide in molten cryolite to lower the melting point and therefore the energy required, and passing through a large electrical current. When this was done, pure aluminum collected at the bottom. The process was named after both scientists, and we still use the Hall-Héroult method today. In 1889, Carl Joseph Bayer developed a new, more efficient process, the Bayer process, for the extraction of aluminum oxide from bauxite. Again, the price of aluminum fell. The quantities of aluminum produced began to grow, and in 1900, 8,000 tons were produced. In 1946, the output was 681,000 tons, and in 1999, 24 million tons of aluminum was made. Also in 1999, some 7 million tons of recycled aluminum were produced, giving 31 million tons in total. This is more than the production of all the non-ferrous metals combined, even though they were discovered hundreds of years earlier. Aluminum, is very reactive, and so it is difficult to extract. This meant discovery was prolonged until the 19th century, that is the 1800s. At first, it was a very rare commodity, but as process developed and prices fell, it became a more desirable metal for use commercially. Next, I'm going to play some music and show you the obverse sides of the aluminum tokens that I acquired from Yale. Some of them are very readable, some of them are not, but all of them are quite fascinating. And I like the sound they make with a jingle. It makes me feel rich, like Scrooge McDuck. But at any rate, aluminum is used widely for religious metals too within Catholicism. Anyways, enough from me about the history of aluminum. I do collect it now when I find it cheaply, or when I find it in the ground, or when Gil comes up with more pieces that he digs to add to my collection. So, thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy the images that follow.